While belittling the old man's arrangements, I froze when I saw his tattoo. Picture this. Me, in my designer heels, tearing into some old flower vendor like he was yesterday's news. I'm at the top of my game, right? Wrong. Because there, on his arm, was a tattoo. Not just any tattoo, the same one my grandfather had from a life-changing event 60 years ago. Have you ever had a moment that shook you to your core? A split second where everything you thought you knew about yourself crumbled away? Well, buckle up because I'm about to take you on a wild ride through my personal journey from cold-hearted witch to, well, you'll see. I'm Clara Bennett, and I used to be the queen of New York's event planning scene. Emphasis on used to be. But before we dive into my spectacular fall from grace, let me paint you a picture of who I was. Picture a woman in her late 20s, impeccably dressed, with a cell phone permanently attached to her ear, and a look that could freeze hell itself. That was me, the Ice Queen of Manhattan, known for crafting the most exclusive parties this side of the Atlantic. Now, I want you to imagine the complete opposite of me. That would be Samuel Turner, or Sam, as everyone calls him, an 82-year-old flower vendor with wrinkles as deep as the Grand Canyon and a smile that could melt the polar ice caps. Little did I know, this man was about to turn my world upside down. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's rewind to that fateful day when my carefully constructed world began to crumble. It started like any other, with me barking orders and belittling anyone who dared to breathe in my general direction. I was organizing the event of the season for Mrs. Vanderbilt, a woman so particular about her parties that she once fired a caterer for using the wrong shade of napkin. The pressure was on, and I was in full Dragon Lady mode. "Listen up, people," I snapped, my voice cutting through the bustling event space. "This isn't some backyard barbecue. Mrs. Vanderbilt expects perfection, and that's exactly what we're going to deliver. If I see one wilted petal or crooked centerpiece, heads will roll. Understood?" My team scurried around like terrified mice, desperate to avoid my wrath. I smirked, feeling that familiar rush of power. This was my kingdom, and I ruled with an iron fist. As I marched down Fifth Avenue, mentally checking off my to-do list, I spotted him. Sam, with his rickety flower cart, parked right where I needed to be. Irritation bubbled up inside me. How dare this old man inconvenience me? I stormed over, my Louboutins clicking aggressively against the pavement. "Hey you!" I called out, not even bothering to use his name. "I need those peonies and lilies, now!" Sam turned to me, his weathered face breaking into a warm smile that I found utterly infuriating. "Well, hello there, young lady. Aren't you in a hurry today?" I rolled my eyes so hard I nearly gave myself a headache. "Listen, Grandpa, I don't have time for small talk. I'm Clara Bennett, and I have the biggest event of the season in less than 2 hours. So, unless you want to be responsible for ruining Mrs. Vanderbilt's party, I suggest you start wrapping up those flowers." Sam's smile never faltered, even in the face of my blatant disrespect. "Of course, Miss Bennett. I'd be happy to help. These flowers are my pride and joy, you know. Each one carefully tended to ensure they're at their best for special occasions like yours." I tapped my foot impatiently as he carefully selected and wrapped each stem. "You do realize this is why you're still peddling flowers on the street at your age, right? Efficiency is key in this business." Sam chuckled softly, seemingly unfazed by my cruel words. "Oh, there's more to life than just business, Miss Bennett. These flowers, they bring joy to people. That's worth more than all the efficiency in the world." I scoffed, snatching the bouquet from his gnarled hands and thrusting a wad of cash at him. "Whatever helps you sleep at night, old man. Just make sure you deliver the rest to this address in an hour, and don't be late." As I strutted away, I heard him call out, "I'll be there, Miss Bennett. You can count on me." Little did I know, those words would come to haunt me in ways I couldn't possibly imagine. An hour later, I was at the venue, barking orders left and right, when Sam arrived with the flower delivery. I marched over, ready to inspect his work with a critical eye. "Well, it's about time," I snapped, reaching for the flowers. "Let's see if you managed to follow simple instructions." But as I grabbed the bouquet, my eyes landed on something that made my blood run cold. There, on Sam's forearm, partially visible beneath his rolled-up sleeve, was a tattoo. Not just any tattoo, but one I recognized instantly. The same intricate design my grandfather, Henry, had worn proudly until the day he died. I froze, my mind reeling. It couldn't be. The chances were astronomical. And yet there it was, staring me in the face like a ghost from my past. Sam must have noticed my shock because his voice softened. "Is everything all right, Miss Bennett? You look like you've seen a spirit." I couldn't find my voice. My grandfather's stories came flooding back, tales of bravery, sacrifice, and an unbreakable bond forged in the fires of war. He'd always talked about his war buddy, his brother in arms. Could it be? That tattoo, I finally managed to stammer. "Where did you get it?" Sam's eyes crinkled with a mixture of sorrow and fondness. "Ah, this old thing? It's a long story, one that goes back over 60 years, to a time and place I'll never forget, with a man I was proud to call my brother." My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. Was his name Henry? Henry Bennett? The look of surprise on Sam's face confirmed it before he even spoke. "Why, yes, Henry Bennett. The bravest man I ever knew. How did you—" "He was my grandfather," I whispered, feeling like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. Sam's eyes widened, and for a moment he looked like he might topple over. I reached out instinctively to steady him, a gesture of kindness that felt foreign to my hands. "You're Henry's granddaughter?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Little Clara? Oh my, how you've grown. He spoke of you often, you know. His little firecracker, he called you." I felt a lump forming in my throat. Firecracker. I hadn't heard that nickname in years. I don't understand. How come I never met you? Grandpa talked about his war buddy, but I always thought—" Sam's smile turned sad. "Life has a way of complicating things, my dear. After the war, we both had our demons to face. We kept in touch, but distance and circumstances, well, they can be powerful forces." I stood there, amidst the chaos of the event setup, feeling like my entire world had been turned upside down. The great Sam, the war hero my grandfather had spoken of with such reverence, was this humble flower vendor I'd treated so cruelly. Shame washed over me like a tidal wave. What would my grandfather think if he could see me now? The little girl he'd raised to be kind and compassionate turned into this cold, unfeeling monster. I'm so sorry," I choked out, tears threatening to spill over. "The way I spoke to you earlier, it was unforgivable." Sam placed a gentle hand on my arm. Now, don't you worry about that. We all have our bad days." His kindness only made me feel worse. "No, you don't understand. I'm always like that. I've become someone my grandfather would be ashamed of." As those words left my mouth, the full weight of their truth crashed down on me. When had I become this person? When had success and status become more important than the values my grandfather had worked so hard to instill in me? Sam's voice pulled me from my spiraling thoughts. "Clara, your grandfather was one of the best men I ever knew. He faced horrors that would break most people, and he came out of it with his heart still full of love. If he were here, I think he'd tell you it's never too late to change course." I wiped my eyes, suddenly not caring about my perfect makeup or the curious stares from my team. "I don't even know where to start." Sam's eyes twinkled. "Well, how about we start with these flowers? I may be old, but I still know a thing or two about creating beauty. And so, right there in the middle of Mrs. Vanderbilt's extravagant party setup, I found myself arranging flowers with an 81-year-old war veteran. As we worked, Sam shared stories about my grandfather that I'd never heard before. Tales of bravery, yes, but also of vulnerability, of nights spent comforting each other through nightmares, of promises made in foxholes to live life to its fullest if they made it home. I learned that Sam's flower business wasn't just a job, it was a mission. Every bouquet sold helped support local veterans and their families. My grandfather had been involved in the early days, using his charm to rally support and raise funds. As the event start time drew near, I realized we had created something truly magical. The floral arrangements were unlike anything I'd ever seen, wild yet elegant, each bloom telling a story of resilience and hope. Mrs. Vanderbilt was over the moon. "Clara, darling," she gushed, "you've outdone yourself this time. These flowers, they're simply divine." For the first time in years, I felt a genuine smile spread across my face. "I can't take the credit, Mrs. Vanderbilt. This was all Sam's vision." The look of surprise on her face mirrored how I felt inside. When was the last time I'd willingly shared praise? As the party got into full swing, I noticed Sam looking a bit pale. "Are you all right?" I asked, concern coloring my voice. He waved me off with a weak smile. "Just these old bones protesting a bit. Nothing to worry about." But I did worry. And when, an hour later, Sam collapsed, my world shattered all over again. The ambulance ride to the hospital was a blur. All I could think about was how I'd wasted so much time being cruel when I could have been learning from this incredible man. As we waited for news from the doctors, I found myself doing something I hadn't done in years: praying. "Please," I whispered to whatever higher power might be listening, "please don't take him. I've only just found him. I need more time." Hours passed like years. When the doctor finally emerged, his face was grave. "Mr. Turner had a minor heart attack," he explained. "We've stabilized him, but at his age, recovery will be challenging." Relief and fear warred within me. "Can I see him?" Sam looked so small in that hospital bed, hooked up to beeping machines. But when he saw me, that same warm smile spread across his face. "Clara, my dear, you didn't have to stay." I took his hand, marveling at how frail it felt in mine. "Of course I did. Sam, I'm so sorry. For everything. The way I treated you, the person I've become, it's not who I want to be anymore." Sam squeezed my hand weakly. "It's never too late to change, Clara. Your grandfather always believed in the power of second chances. Maybe this is yours." In that moment, I made a decision. No more Ice Queen. No more putting success above humanity. It was time to become the person my grandfather and Sam always believed I could be. Over the next few weeks, as Sam recovered, I threw myself into learning about his work with veterans. I used my event planning skills to organize fundraisers, my connections to secure donations. For the first time in years, I felt truly alive. Slowly but surely, the old Clara began to emerge from beneath the hardened shell I'd built around myself. I laughed more, cried more, felt more, and with each passing day, I saw pride growing in Sam's eyes, the same pride I used to see in my grandfather's. As Sam regained his strength, our bond grew stronger. He became the grandfather I'd lost, and I the granddaughter he'd never had. Together, we expanded his flower business, turning it into a thriving social enterprise that employed veterans and supported their families. Mrs. Vanderbilt, impressed by the change in me, became one of our biggest supporters. "Clara, darling," she said at our first major fundraiser, "I always knew you had it in you to be truly extraordinary." I smiled, thinking of how far I'd come. I just needed a little reminder of what really matters in life. Now, as I stand here today, surrounded by the beauty of Sam's flowers and the warmth of a community I once scorned, I can't help but marvel at the journey that brought me here. All it took was a tattoo, a small mark that connected me to my past and changed my future. So I ask you this: what small thing in your life might be trying to teach you a bigger lesson? Are you listening? Or are you, like I was, too caught up in your own importance to notice? Life has a funny way of humbling us when we least expect it. My advice? Embrace it. You never know. It might just lead you to becoming the person you were always meant to be. And hey, if you've enjoyed this little tale of redemption, why not stick around? Hit that follow button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss the next chapter in this crazy journey we call life. After all, every day is a chance for a new beginning. Are you ready to start yours?